Hey, I'm Alex Mackler from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing Tucana Builders from Aporta Games. Tucana Builders is a 1 to 5 player game that feels like a roll and write, but not really. In this game, what you're going to be doing is you're going to start by setting up your board. You're going to have a high degree of variability to that, because there are all these different cards over here that are going to give you different hut configurations, which definitely matter as far as the game goes. You're also then going to follow that up by going through all these cards one at a time until players put their various setup tiles. One will go down there. You're going to place these down, orientating the bridge over there. But that means the different configuration of hut and the different configuration of tiles in center, while that will be the same player to player, it will be different game to game. And then lastly, if you're playing with them, and I highly encourage you do, you'll also have goals in play. We have 2 goals up over here, which is connect huts C and F to each other. So you want C and F connected. You also want to connect at least 5 animals of the same type to each other. And again, there are different goals that are going to be in play. You're going to choose 2 of those 6 goals, assuming you are playing with the goals. Now that we have all that set up, let's go ahead and go through the game. In the game, what you're going to do is every single round, you're going to have these cards, you're going to be flipping them out, and there's going to be 2 rounds of play. You're going to go through the entire deck each time. You're going to go ahead and flip a card, and then each player is going to grab a tile from this face down stack, and this is where the tiles will be different. Until now, everything's been the same. But as you go through this, you're going to have some degree of forced choice that's the same, so we're all going to be placing down a token on one of these volcano spots. But what token? I might have gotten this token, and someone else may have gotten that token, so there's going to be a degree of forced asymmetry as you play. Now, what you're trying to do is you're trying to connect these 2 huts of their color. Effectively, at the end of each round, you're going to score for each of the toucans, as well as for the colored animals that match that hut. So you're going to go ahead and look over here, and you're going to put this down and say, well, I want to get this over here connected to one of these huts, and it has to go on magma. So I could go ahead and do this over here. It's not the worst, but I also could directly put it over there. You know what? I think I'm going to directly put this down over here, so we're already going to be scoring a point. We're going to go ahead and flip over the next card and see what else we score. We got another lava spot. We're going to take another tile. This one, okay, so now the upside is if I put this here, I'll be getting those toucans over there added to that hut, which is good. But the flip side is if I could get this down to a blue hut, that might be better. I don't know if I can as easily. This isn't a great location. That's not a great location. Honestly, none of these are great, but I'm kind of tempted. You know what? We're just going to go ahead and take the L over there. We're just going to put this down over here. That blue animal will not score for us, but we do have the... No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. This is the problem with this game. This is the problem with any game, really. Decisions, decisions, decisions. I don't know what to do over here, so I think I'm going to... It has to go on lava, too, which means I couldn't have done it there. I don't know what I was thinking. I will go ahead and place this down like there, like so. That feels wrong. We're going to do it like this, okay? We're going to do this like this and hope for the best and see what happens later. We're going to flip over another card. This time we got the greenery. We're going to take this tile over here. And again, we want it on greenery. We have pathways going out of each of those. We want this connected to yellow, though, which is tricky. If I place this... Nope, that won't work. If I place this like this, that connects the toucan, and I could probably get this down there. So let's go ahead and rely on that. We're going to draw another one of our magma tiles. We got this one over here. The magma is not the most helpful, but I could place this down like this, which is not bad because that can come back over there. We're going to flip the next tile over here. We got that one, and we're going to place this down here. Now, this is where I could cut those off forever, but I don't want to do so. We do ideally want to get things coming back to the blue over here because this is a blue spot, and we could do so with this, maybe. It's not the best. None of these are the best. It's okay. We're just going to go ahead and make the best out of a bad situation. We're going to place... Nope, that would be terrible. That would be terrible. I think we're going to go like this over here and see how that one plays out for us. We're going to go ahead and draw over another tile over here and see what we got this time. We got this one, again, on that mud-swept kind of terrain. But this time we might be able to work with it a little better. This one would cut off... You know what? If we do this like this, it's interesting because we loop everything down to there, but that does mean that these are all connected here. We'd have to be creative getting this back here, but I think we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to flip over another card. You're seeing the pattern over here. I think we're going to stop after this tile over here and see how things go. This one could go over there. That's not the greatest. We're going to go put this one over here and see how that plays out. That connects that. And so now we're going to go ahead and talk through how you score. But basically, you'd run through this deck. Now, a few things to note. We have 5 more cards to go. At any point, you can go ahead and use your wild, which means you can sit there and say, I know I just drew this card over here, which is stone, and I know we have this tile, but this tile actually wouldn't be helpful on stone. This tile will be helpful somewhere else, so we're going to use our wild and flip it face down, and then be able to place this. Actually, that actually does work on stone, so we're going to ignore that. That works on stone just fine. But either way, you can use your wild once per round to place the tile anywhere you want. And then when you get to the end of the round, you're going to go ahead and score. Now, the way you score is for each animal, you're going to score based on the huts it's connected to. So, for example, this red snake over here and this red snake and this red snake are all connected to that hut. So, we're going to move up 3 points on the red track. Now, over here, we don't have anything else connected to the hut over here. So, that hut's scored already. This hut has nothing scored. 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 And this hut has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so we get 6 on blue, and that's going to be our score over there. So effectively what you're doing is, as you go through the game, you are looking at each hut and scoring based on the animals of its color, as well as the toucans are wild. You're adding all of that to be able to score up each of the things, but then you go ahead and shuffle this, and you go ahead and continue. And in the meantime, by the way, if at any point you've accomplished any goals, for example, five animals of the same type, I have 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, but I'm not yet at 5. But if you had 5 animals of the same type, if you added those goals there, you can also score for the higher number if you get there first, or the lower number if you get there second. And that's what we're going to be using these tokens for along the way. You'll shuffle this up, you'll flip this over to reset that, and you'll go into the second round. And at the end of the second round, you're going to score again, but you're going to score so much more because you've done so much more on the board. You're going to score up all these tracks. You're going to score for each of these tracks. You're going to score again for your lowest track, so being evenly distributed is good. And then you're going to score for your goals as you go through it. And that is how you play Tucana Builders. You are flipping over tiles. You are placing down tiles. You're trying to connect the right animals to the right color huts. You could, depending on splitting pathways, you could have multiple colors connected. So you can have certain animals that will score 3 or 4 times, depending on what they're connected to. If you had both red huts connected to each other, then all of these snakes touching those huts would effectively be worth 2 points if they properly connect, depending on the pathway they go. Pathways do end at a hut, they don't go through a hut, so you have to take that into account. But that is how you play Tucana Builders, which means it's time for the review, starting off with ease of play. Rulebook is incredibly accessible for this one, a very short rulebook, very easy to get into. The rules are easy to understand. There's setup, there's the actual gameplay, then there's the modifications, like the bonuses and stuff that slightly change the game. But that's basically, it's a very simple game to teach, to get people up and running, and gameplay is around 30 minutes for the game. It could run a little long, but I'd say around 30 minutes overall. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, the variable start goals and tiles keep this game fresh. You're going to have totally different configurations as far as what the board starts off at every single time you play, and therefore different challenges of what you're doing. Those goals will also give you something to strive for, all while you're trying to do the same core premise every single time, but then the way the tiles come out, the order those pop out, it means every single game you play is running the same basic mechanism, but ultimately feels slightly different every single time you engage with it. Not overly different. I wish there were more goals. There's only 6 goals in the game, which means within 3 games you could have seen all the goals. So I wish there were more, and arguably I wish there were 3 per game instead of 2 per game, and you could easily house rule that if you just find yourself another token. But either way, overall, the game gives you a decent degree of variability in what feels like a roll and write while not being a roll and write as you go through it, and it's challenging to get what you want in the game, trying to figure out how to navigate to get all the tiles you want, to be able to take advantage and score as efficiently as possible. It is a lot to actually get that up and running, and it'll require clever planning, a degree of trade-off and compromise of how much do you want to score for the first round, because you score that first round, you're going to score that again the second round, so any point you get in round 1 is doubled. So do you focus on the perfect setup that will pay off in the long term, or do you focus on just getting those quick and early points, because if you get those, it may not be as cool or as amazing, but you'll score those points twice. So there is that trade-off as you try to build out the perfect island as you go through it. So overall, there's a decent balance of trying to learn what works in the game while feeling satisfying to ultimately score points. As far as what I don't like in the game, there's one thing and one thing only, but it really is a big deal, unfortunately, which is scoring is a nightmare in the second round. That first round, you usually don't have so much going on that it's not the hardest to track every single thing. That second round, the degree of chaining pathways and that you have to score through things means this is a game that plays in around 30 minutes, and the end game scoring could easily be a 10-minute process on its own. And this is one of those things where whenever I say stuff like this, inevitably I will have people who are like, we scored in 3 minutes, I don't know what the problem is. And good, those comments are helpful because people watching this review can look and see how many of those comments there are and see how off I am on this one. But for me, Tucana Builders was a game I really enjoyed, but then the scoring came along and it just felt annoying and frustrating. And by the time we were getting in multiple plays of it, it felt like I was playing the game already not looking forward to the part where you had to score. This is one of those games that if this game was on Board Game Arena where it took care of those things for you, I'd be playing this game a lot. It is satisfying. It is fun. We'll talk more about this in final thoughts. The scoring, I don't like. I do not like the scoring. It really was a lot of just trying to figure out where the pathways are and trace out, okay, because again, right now it's pretty simple. You don't have a lot of pathways. The first round is not where I experienced this. It's the second round scoring where you have a much fuller board. You're trying to be like, okay, this traces that way, but then it branches over here. Okay, great, we got those, and now it goes this way. It is a pain to try to score. I'm spending a lot of time talking about it. I didn't like the scoring of the game. As far as what I can see others not liking, first of all, it has a roll and write feel, but it has some of the randomness thrown in, meaning you have a roll and write feel of it where very often in roll and writes, you're all dealing with the same hand. You're dealt the same hand, and it's how you use it. And this has that for the initial start, but then it doesn't have it for the tiles. You might draw a tile that's perfect for your board, and I might draw an entirely different tile. This tile is not perfect for my board, but it could be. We could place it over here like so, maybe. No, it's not good, whatever. But you could have tiles in the game that you draw that are great for what you're trying to do, or you could have tiles that are not, and so there is a degree of luck to it. Okay, great, congratulations, we're playing with the same terrain. But who cares? We're placing a different tile in the same terrain, so we're not actually playing the same game. The game is driving us, but it's driving us asymmetrically, which is different than what a roll and write typically is trying to do. So I do find that it feels most like a roll and write, but if you don't like that degree of unfairness, that unfairness is present. I'd call it more randomness than unfairness. You have to deal with the hand you're dealt, but this is not a purely symmetrical game. It's up to you to build your engine. It is a somewhat symmetrical game with a degree of randomness thrown into your symmetry, making it, weirdly enough, asymmetry. I'll also say that in general, the visibility isn't the best. One of these things, like I found consistently when I teach players the game for the first time, and I learned this after my first game, but that first game I had all the players one at a time realizing that there's little pathways off the edge over here, and that's something that in subsequent plays I started teaching people right away, but it's easy to miss stuff like that. The game looks beautiful on the board, looks great, not necessarily beautiful, it's a solid looking game, but I'd say some things get hidden a bit in the artwork and the top and the board. Nothing crazy, not a big nitpick, but something worth calling out. As far as final thoughts on Tucana Builders, I started off really liking this game. Not like an amazing game, the best of the best, none of that, but it's a solid game that gives you variability, it gives you a fun puzzle challenge. It's kind of, to me, felt like what the Guild of Merchant Explorers. The Guild of Merchant Explorers was a game that felt like it was trying to be a roll and write, but not a roll and write. And I liked it. I enjoyed the Guild of Merchant Explorers, but in some areas it wasn't as fulfilling for me. The nature of pulling things back down and tearing things apart as you built them up. And this has the exact opposite feel. This is a roll and write that's not a roll and write. And you build up across 2 rounds. That first round you get a little bit done. The second round you get so much more done. And it's challenging to think through how you want to prioritize and build and what's going to be the best, when do you give up an animal scoring because you need that pathway, versus when are you trying to score every animal. It is a fun game that for the amount of work, the amount of playtime, the amount of setup, all those things, is just an easy to get into game that I was really enjoying. And then we came to scoring. And like I said already, scoring took away from my experience for it. It means that I'm not looking forward to the end game. I kind of want to play the game, but I don't actually want to score. I genuinely don't care enough about who won to go through scoring. I almost want to play the game, see that I did stuff well, and then not bother with the scoring, which feels a bit anticlimactic. The scoring took this one down a lot for me. This is what I was saying earlier. If this is a game that was on Board Game Arena, I'd be playing it a lot. You do that scoring for me automatically, I am here for this, because this is a game that on BGA, you can play it in 15 minutes, knock it out, and have a satisfying experience where you felt decently in control of what you're doing as you build out your board. I really like this game, less the scoring, to the point that the scoring does hamper my desire to pull out and play this. For me, this is a 3 out of 5, and it would easily be a 3.5, if not a 4, if not for the fact that the scoring did take away from the experience for me. Again, I do encourage you to look at other reviews or even comments down below to see if other players have or have not had that experience, because if other people aren't, if other people are like, you know what, it didn't seem like a big deal to me, then good. Take into account that I very much enjoy the gameplay. The one thing that was in the way is something that I hope is not an experience others are having, but did get in the way of, because of how light and short and small this was, I am harping on a point that I normally would not harp on as something that gets in the way of my experience. But anyways, that is Tucana Builders, a 3 out of 5. Game was great, but the scoring really knocked it down a peg for me. As far as other game recommendations, first of all, Trails to Tucana from Aporta Games, their original actual roll and write game, I found very enjoyable, a lot of fun. I still have it in my collection. It's one of those games I don't play a ton, but it's always a good time when you play it out. And it very much has similar DNA to the two experiences. I can see why they, had this as Tucana Builders, but I very much enjoy and recommend Trails to Tucana. And if you're looking for another pathway generating game that is very quick, fun, and easy to get into, I always recommend Railroad Inc. from Horrible Guild. Strong recommend the different versions of that, but they have red, blue, green, yellow. They have a bunch of different versions, and all of them are a lot of fun. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.